I'm Vicki Hogarth, and welcome to Southwest Magazine. The first ever community empowerment and wellness fair will take place at the Garcelon Civic Centre on November 16th from 12:30 to 4:30 p.m. Here to tell us all about it are Stephanie Clarke and Sam Gullison from the Willow Centre. Thank you both for sitting down with me today.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Sam, I'd love to start off with just an overview of what the Empowerment and Wellness Fair is. Tell us more.
Absolutely. So the Community Empowerment and Wellness Fair is a collaborative effort that's being led by the Charlotte County Abuse Prevention Network, Charlotte County Outreach, and the Willow Centre. And it's in collaboration with Love Shouldn't Hurt, and We're Here For You Canada. And basically what it is bringing service providers and wellness professionals together as a one-stop shop. The idea is to share information, collaborate, network, and raise awareness around issues related to mental health, addiction, gender-based violence. November is Family Violence Prevention Month, and so it does have a primary focus on gender-based violence. But however, it's really a one-stop shop for connecting the community and community members with service providers and resources that exist in our community, as well as service providers to connect with one another.
Mm-hmm. Stephanie, why did this idea come about? Why did you think it was so important to bring this all under one roof and have this day?
Yeah, so there's a lot to unpack there, but one of the main reasons is building community resilience. A lot of times community providers, I think Sam had shared earlier, you work in these fields and sometimes you don't even know what's out there. And so I didn't know domestic violence outreach existed until I came to work for the Willow Centre, and I think Sam had a similar story to that. And so that's something that I've been in this field for a long time. I've worked in situations where I could have referred people to domestic violence outreach, and so we really want to build a community of like collective care where we are all on the same page, where instead of sending someone off to go figure something out after they've had the courage to reach out and they've had the courage to connect already, instead of sending them out again and be like, okay, here you go do it on your own again, we can make those soft transfers because we know who's out there and what they're doing, what their referral processes are, what eligibility requirements are. And just like building on community resiliency, like when we work together and we collaborate, we're building on a community that has the skills and the tools and the knowledge to function well together and hold each other accountable, but also just support one another when we need it.
What are, Sam, some of the organizations we can expect to see at this event? You mentioned earlier, but before we started filming, people like Neighborhood Works, Sophia Recovery Center. So there'll be a whole array of what services are available here in Charlotte County. Yeah,
so we have a very kind of comprehensive list. There will be victim services. There will be Project Village when it comes to transportation. There will be the working NB. It's a kind of a broad list as well, because we'll have service providers like mental health and addiction, child and youth supports, BME Kids, the Boys and Girls Club. In addition to that, we'll have, for service providers who may not be able to come, for example, Kit's Place in St. John, they're a sexual assault center for children, and they cover our region. And so they're not able to attend, however, we're gonna have resources and supports that they have to offer available for people to view and see. And then we'll have public health, the Multicultural Association. Right now we have a range of about 35 service providers that have booked.
And will it be set up, it says fair, it will be set up like booths, so if a person does come to this event, will they just walk around and get an idea of what services are in the community? What can we expect from attending?
So there's a few different parts for attending. pre-attendance, there's going to be a social hour for service providers themselves to connect. Just because with events like this, you get busy and you don't get to actually see who else is there. And for community members who are coming, we will have booths set up. And in addition to that, it is a family-friendly event. And so we'll have a section where Bernie's Body Blast will be set up, and she will have things for the kids to do. And then we'll have face painting and other activities for children. And the idea there is that caregivers or parents can allow their children to engage in those activities while they explore what else is available. And then in addition to the booths, there is a room that oversees the pool, and inside that room we're going to have info sessions. And so starting at 12:30, we'll have our first info session, which would be the community officer, Lisa Williams, on consent. And then Stephanie will do an info session on healthy relationships. And then we'll have Lisa Cheney, who will do an info session on mental health. And then we'll have an aftercare session where Stephanie Stevens with Bone and Physio will do a yoga session and have that physical component as well.
And Stephanie, I'd love for you to give us an overview of your session in particular, so you could give us an idea of the work you do at the Willow Centre and what can people expect from your session at the Wellness Fair.
Yeah, absolutely. So I work, I think I mentioned this on the last time I was on the show, is I work as a sexual violence counselor at the Willow Centre. And so one of the things that I see, and I was a private counselor beforehand, and one of the things that I see a lot of the times is we don't have healthy relationships all the time, and the components of a healthy relationship, what does that mean? And so when you think of domestic violence or sexual violence or gender-based violence in general, one of the key things there is an unhealthy relationship. And so it's how do we figure out what are the signs of that? What are the signs of an unhealthy relationship? What are the components of a healthy relationship? So we think healthy boundaries. How do we set healthy boundaries? What are we looking out for the signs that make us feel loved and cared for? Figuring out what our needs are and getting in touch with ourselves so that we understand that and how we want to communicate with other people. How do we do conflict resolution and things like that so that we understand and can be more informed about what does it mean to live in a healthy relationship, especially when you think of people who have never had a healthy relationship in their lives. And sometimes not being in healthy relationships is just generational. It's not something like these people are bad people or the people that are in your life are bad. It just, we know what we learn, and what we learn is what we experience. And so it's not a blame game by any means. It's just getting in touch and trying to understand. So, and I think that will, that's kind of what I'm hoping to talk about.
And this fair obviously gives people in the community a chance to see what services are available all under one roof. The Willow Centre is fairly new to Charlotte County. For people who maybe missed the last time you were on this show, can you give people an overview before the fair of the work you do there and what the Willow Centre offers?
Yeah, absolutely. So we, at the Willow Centre, we're a sexual violence support services center, sexual violence supports for Charlotte County. So we service all of Charlotte County. So right now we're just doing virtual care for the outer communities, and eventually hopefully we'll be more in person. And next year we hope to be able to provide groups within other communities like Blacks Harbour, Grand Manan, Campobello. And then for in terms of the services that we currently offer right now is like support and advocacy. So if someone comes in and they need help getting connected to a SANE nurse, we can make that happen and help them with that. If they just don't know what their options are, we can help them figure that out. If they and the other thing is it's not just about current experiences, it's anything historical as well. So if you had an experience as a child or you had an experience as a teenager, or if you are a senior and you didn't have a space to talk about that before in your life and you just need someone to talk to about it, we can provide that kind of support. So we do support and advocacy and specialized counseling right now, and we have 2 counseling programs. So we have a counseling program that's for people that are still in active war zone, and this is kind of still in crisis, still living in an abusive situation. Maybe they're unhoused, maybe they are still in a relationship with their abuser, and so the counseling program is on safety and stabilization, just learning coping skills, learning how to kind of just get in touch with themselves again, figure out what they need, safety planning. And then the other model is more trauma-informed therapy. And so that's where we can start to unpack things, because they are in a safe position. So when we're doing coping skills, they're also safe afterwards. And so we can start to learn more about trauma reprocessing. And so we can do that through EMDR therapy, or I take like a humanistic lens. And so I really work the person is the expert of their own life, and I'm just here to kind of help them kind of figure out and rediscover who they are and what matters to them. And so so those are the couple things that we offer, and I think we're going to offer groups as well. So we're going to have some support groups, and we're offering the Healing Roots, which is a psychoeducational group, and that's open to the whole community. And that's just learning about trauma in the brain. How does it impact us? Kind of learning how to understand yourself and your own response to trauma, and the people around you. And then we also are going to offer drop-ins. So on Mondays from 12 to 1, you can drop in, and that will just be really it's not therapeutic. It's just kind of coming in, doing coloring. So next week is our first one on the 4th, and we're going to be doing mandala drawings. And I have templates because I'm not a mandala drawer myself. So it's like templates on types of things that you can add to your mandala. And it's just about like checking in and just allowing yourself time to rest and be creative and turn your brain off, but like in relation to other people. And this is open to the community as well. It's not necessarily just for survivors. It's open to survivors or anyone in the community that just wants to come in and connect with other people and spend an hour just being creative.
I learned about the Willow Centre from you reaching out, and obviously this fair offers an opportunity for the community to find out more about you and the other organizations. But Sam, you mentioned something really important, which is that this fair, you're going to do a pre-session with the different organizations involved in the fair. Why is that so important, especially from the perspective of you both being from the Willow Centre, which is new to the community, to have that opportunity to connect with other care providers, to find out what services they offer and how you can connect?
Yeah, well, I think one of the most important pieces of that is that collective care, is that wraparound care. By being able to provide that opportunity, I'll give an example of when we look at the transition house. When we think transition house in Charlotte County, we think, this is a shelter for women and children, when actually there's so much more than just a shelter. They offer a number of different programs where, they do Girls Circle in the school, and they host other programs like second stage housing. And so it provides that opportunity to get a deeper understanding of the resources that are offered from all of these community partners, and really build on that collaboration. And when they say it takes a village, it truly does take a village. And for so long, especially with COVID, we've all worked in silos. And this provides that opportunity to engage and to understand, what is there, and also not reinvent the wheel. Part of, kind of bring it to the Willow Centre a little bit too, is we have created a space where we have a multi-purpose room. And so the idea there is to be able to share that space with other service providers, that if they want to provide counseling with clients, but their practice is in St. Andrews, but their client is in St. Stephen, this space is here for them to be able to do that. So this is an opportunity for us to also share that kind of information with service providers. And I'm looking forward to learning about what information I don't already know. And I know Steph kind of touched on this already, but I'm from Charlotte County, and for 20 years I've worked in the social service, human service field, but there are so many services that I didn't know existed, and yet I was inside their facilities for other reasons, and so it's really about building that collaboration and strengthening the connections among service providers, and that kind of comprehensive network of support for the community themselves, and whether that be people that are impacted directly or indirectly. This is really for all of us.
I was telling you before, I feel the same way. Even as a news person in Charlotte County, it's amazing sometimes what you don't know, even though you spend your whole life here and that is your day-to-day. Who do you hope comes to this fair, aside from people who might be curious about the services provided for their own benefit, be it politicians or just people from the community who should know about what's going on?
Yeah, so I would love to see, it is in St. Stephen, however, we are Charlotte County, and so we've really tried to develop this comprehensive group that's diverse as well. So the hub from St. George will be there. So we really want to see members from not just within St. Stephen, but all of the other communities attend. And we feel that it's really important for, our town council, whether that be St. Andrews, St. Stephen, St. George, the islands, to come and participate by seeing what supports are available, the leaders in our communities and in our province, because the service providers and the professionals that are going to be at this event, we are the eyes and the ears. We are the ones that are often working on the ground level, and really, when it comes to systemic issues and intersectional, things, we know that mental health, abuse, addiction, violence, all of those, poverty, the unsheltered, it's often multifaceted, and you don't typically have one without another. And so, so we think that it's really important for leaders who are, working with their communities to address some of these needs. It's important for them to talk to the people that are on those kind of front lines. I hope that made sense.
It totally makes sense, and I'm so excited to go, and I'm so excited to see the impact that this fair has on the community. What is your hope for the impact? What do you hope this does in terms of educating both the public and people in positions of, let's say, council or your MLA?
Really, it's about what we hope for the impact to be is for people that are attending themselves to be empowered when they leave, to feel like, whether they are there for them or someone they know, that they can walk out of there knowing what supports are available, what resources, and on the other side of that, what gaps exist, and from that, how do we network together going forward, either as a community or with community leaders to address some of that? And so it's really, for me, when it comes to community, it's wanting them to truly feel empowered and feel connected, and to be able to, talk directly to those providers, and get to know them as well. That would be part of it. Do you have anything to add to that?
I think you said it really beautifully, and I think just also gender-based violence affects everyone at some point or another. It's not something that affects one family or another family or one person. It's something that affects an entire community, and it affects, because even if you didn't experience gender-based violence, you might have witnessed it. You might know someone that's witnessed it who's now had an interaction with you that could have been harmful in some way, or and so it's important for us all to be aware of gender-based violence and how we can respond. I think of just the way that this is what I hope for the info sessions, is that we can learn how to be responsive as a community to people that have experienced gender-based violence. So instead of saying things like, oh, well, what did you do to deserve that kind of response, is being able to actively listen and learn how to actively listen with each other and say, oh, okay, thank you for telling me that story. Or
and really provide an understanding of the complexities
Yes.
of so many of the issues that is faced in Charlotte County. We haven't even touched on the islands and how unique the needs are there. And it's really wanting people to understand that and also take control and agency in like their own lives and their own well-being, and recognizing the importance of like how all of this ties in, how all of these services tie in, and how all of these systemic issues relate to one another.
I know you touched on this, but it's how there's the intersections that these services meet, or these systemic issues meet. So we think of hot topic is the unhoused right now. But when we think of that, there's often sexual violence, there's often gender-based violence, there's often addiction. All of those things exist together, which is something that you did touch on. But it's instead of trying to think of it from a one pinpoint of let's deal with the unhoused issue, how do we holistically look at this as a community, as community leaders and service providers and community members, and say this is more complex. There's a bigger picture here. And if we're doing a disservice by focusing on one aspect that encompasses so much. And so how do we pay attention to where those issues intersect with each other, and what are our individual roles and collective roles in kind of approaching that?
And all the more reason for so many people in the community to come out, whether they feel touched by this or not, is to see where as a community we have issues that we can deal with better. And Sam, you brought up a really great point earlier, which is let's see what the services are, but let's also see where the gaps are and where we could step up to the plate and make those connections together. Where are we seeing the gaps right now?
Yeah, so I mean, I can't, because we're all kind of experts in our own field, and so I can't really speak to all of it. I do know that, as a network, because we are a diverse group of people, we're working on trying to identify what some of those gaps are, because we have, neighborhood works at the table, we have mental health and addictions, we have social development, we have RCMP, we have victim services, So some of it's systemic, right? And some of it's I certainly think is bigger than us as well, whether that be provincial or whatever. But I can speak to specifically to the Willow Centre. I've spent the last year kind of developing what this is going to look like, and the first 6 months of it I spent building my relationships within community with service providers and understanding what are the needs specifically related to sexual violence, how does it show up in their work, what do they need, how do they need to be supported, and what are the gaps in our community. And so what I learned through community analysis that I'm going to be presenting on actually next Wednesday is that there were no services. There are now, and each community's needs are very different. So for us, we don't have a SANE program, the Sexual Assault Nurse Examiner program. So if somebody wants to access the hospital and they've been assaulted, there's no SANE there to directly respond. And so that's a gap in service. SANE can parachute down here, or the client can go to St. John, but how do we do that in a trauma-informed way where we're not sending them with a stranger in a cab? And so, which it's not uncommon from some of the research that I did, that historically that is something that has happened. Another gap having been, when you think about counseling supports, often, you need to be able to deal with your trauma. But what about the individuals who are still living in that war zone, as Steph said, or who are performing sexual acts as a place to have shelter, because this is happening. But they still need support. So how do we work on that gap? So that, is something that we have worked on through Steph developing the 2 counseling programs. But there are still several gaps that need to be established. And one gap that I will speak to that's not related to the Willow Centre would be, intimate partner violence, domestic violence, and the control. And when it comes to navigating the law system, the legal system, there is no support for women if they need to be divorced, if there's any type of marital assets. And so you have an individual who's in a relationship where their partner is controlling, and then they want to leave and they want to be free from that, but yet their partner is still holding control to say, you know, good luck divorcing me or having me leave the home because you don't have money and you don't have the resources to be able to do that. It's a huge gap in our community. And oftentimes, as a previous role as a domestic violence outreach worker, which Desiree Shelton now does, we do that system navigation. We we help support them in writing affidavits and filing court documents, but yet we're not paralegals. But lawyers are so expensive, and so there's a huge gap there. So when it comes to, you know, the gender-based violence and intimate partner violence and sexual violence, I can certainly speak to some of the gaps in community there, but for some of them, you know, I feel like that's what, you know, part of the information sharing will be, is to learn from them and what they identify as gaps, and how do we support each other. Because I know that this program, the Willow Centre, and the work that we're doing doesn't exist without community.
And on that note, I could speak to you both all day. We're in the final minute of this show. What are your last words to people at home watching? I'll start with Stephanie about why they should come to the Community Empowerment and Wellness Fair.
I would love to see people there, just one as a way to get out and get involved in community again since COVID, but also just to learn about what gender-based violence is, learn about the services that are available to you, and learn about how you can support the people around you. And also just, you have a chance to win a lot of free stuff. So.
Yeah, we want this to be fun, interactive, engaging. There'll be a giveaway at every single booth. There'll be door prizes, refreshments. There's no cost. Just come and see what's there.
Well, I will be there, and again, the door is open. Whenever you want to come tell us more about the incredible work you do, please come visit us at CHCO.
Thank you so much.
My guests today have been Stephanie Clarke and Sam Gullison from the Willow Centre. Be sure to check out the Community Empowerment and Wellness Fair at the Garcelon Civic Centre on November 16th from 12:30 to 4:30 p.m. I'm Vicki Hogarth. Thank you for watching Southwest Magazine.
Southwest Magazine is a news and public affairs production of CHCO Television.